The Talking Train, Chapter 1. The Journey Begins. James, a young man with an insatiable thirst for adventure, had always dreamt of exploring the world. With a backpack filled with essentials, a travel journal in hand, and his heart pounding with excitement, he stepped onto Platform 9 at London's King's Cross Station. What he didn't expect, however, was that his journey would be anything but ordinary. As he boarded the sleek vintage-style train, he was startled by a warm yet authoritative voice. "Welcome aboard, James." James spun around, expecting to see the conductor, but there was no one in sight. The train itself had spoken. Who said that?" he stammered, gripping his journal tightly. "I did." The voice responded with a chuckle. "I am Theo, the talking train." James' eyes widened with amazement. "A talking train? But how? I have traveled across continents, carrying passengers from all walks of life. Over the years, I have learned not only their languages, but also their stories, cultures, and wisdom." James's initial shock gave way to fascination. A train that could talk, that could share the secrets of the world with him. This was better than any adventure he had imagined. Their journey began as the train smoothly glided away from the platform, the rhythmic sound of wheels on the tracks filling the air. Theo narrated tales of the many people he had carried. Lovers meeting for the first time, scholars deep in thought, and musicians composing melodies inspired by the landscapes outside their windows. As they moved through the countryside, James gazed out at the rolling green fields and quaint English villages. "So, where are we going first?" he asked eagerly. "Paris," Theo replied. "A city of history, art, and romance. But most importantly, a city where you will learn a crucial lesson about embracing new cultures." James felt a thrill rush through him. He had read about Paris in books and seen it in films, but now he would experience it firsthand. As the train approached the coast, Theo continued, "Understanding a new place is not just about seeing the sights. It's about listening to the people, learning their language, respecting their customs. Are you ready for that?" James nodded eagerly. He had always been intrigued by different cultures, but now he realized that true understanding came from immersing oneself completely. With that thought in mind, he leaned back in his seat, watching as the train sped toward the Channel Tunnel, ready for the first leg of Chapter 2. The streets of Paris. As the train rolled into Gare du Nord, James felt a surge of excitement. He peered through the window, taking in the sight of hurried commuters, travelers with heavy luggage, and vendors selling pastries and coffee. The train came to a halt, and James stepped onto the platform, inhaling the scent of freshly baked bread wafting from a nearby bakery. "Welcome to Paris, James," Theo chimed cheerfully. "The city of lights awaits you." James adjusted his backpack and made his way through the bustling station. Outside, he was greeted by a cacophony of honking cars, distant street musicians playing the accordion, and snippets of French conversations. The city was alive, vibrant, and full of energy. "Where should I go first?" James asked, looking around with wide eyes. "The Eiffel Tower, of course. But remember, Paris isn't just about landmarks. It's about its people, culture, and language. Try to interact with the locals. It will enrich your experience." James nodded eagerly and hopped onto the metro. Theo guided him through the intricate underground network, explaining how Parisians relied on this efficient system. He admired the murals at some stations and was amazed by the ease with which locals navigated the subway. When he surfaced near the Eiffel Tower, James was awestruck. The Iron Giant loomed above him, shimmering in the daylight. He noticed couples taking photos, artists sketching portraits, and street vendors selling souvenirs. Taking Theo's advice to heart, he decided to buy a crepe from a street vendor. "Bonjour, un crêpe au chocolat, s'il vous plaît," he said hesitantly, recalling the words Theo had taught him. The vendor, an elderly man with kind eyes, smiled warmly. "Très bien. You speak French?" "Just a little," James admitted. "I'm trying to learn." The vendor handed him the crepe and patted his shoulder. "It's good to try. We appreciate it when visitors make an effort. Enjoy Paris." James beamed, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He savored the warm, chocolate-filled crepe while strolling along the Seine River. As he walked, he admired the stunning architecture of Notre Dame, the quaint bookshops, and the elegant bridges spanning the river. Later, he ventured into a small bakery tucked away in a side street. The scent of butter and sugar enveloped him as he stepped inside. A woman behind the counter greeted him with a friendly, "Bonjour." James hesitated but decided to try again. "Bonjour, un pain au chocolat, s'il vous plaît." The woman nodded approvingly and handed him the pastry. "You're doing great. Learning a language is like traveling. It takes time, but it's always worth it." As James bit into the flaky, chocolate-filled pastry, he realized something important. Travel wasn't just about sightseeing. It was about experiencing a place through its language, food, and people. He felt grateful for Theo's wisdom and excited for the lessons ahead. As he made his way back to the train station, Theo's voice rang in his ears. "See, James, a little effort goes a long way. You're already connecting with people in ways you never imagined. That's the magic of travel." James smiled. Paris had been a city of lessons. Chapter 3. The Wonders of Rome as. The train sped through the Italian countryside. James gazed at the picturesque vineyards, rolling hills, and charming villages outside his window. He could almost taste the fresh pasta and gelato awaiting him in Rome. Theo, ever the knowledgeable guide, began narrating the city's history. Rome, the eternal city, has witnessed the rise and fall of empires. The Colosseum, the Pantheon, and the Vatican City. Each has a story to tell. You're about to walk through a living museum. James could barely contain his excitement. The moment the train pulled into Roma Termini, he stepped onto the platform, immediately overwhelmed by the energy of the station. Crowds moved in all directions. Hurried travelers rushed to their platforms, and the sound of rolling suitcases echoed around him. "All right, Theo, where do I start?" James asked, looking at the chaotic flow of people. "First, let's figure out how you'll get around," Theo advised. Rome's transportation system is different from Paris. You have buses, trams, and the metro. It's essential to learn how locals move through their city. James approached a ticket counter, struggling with the automated machine. "How do I buy a metro ticket?" he muttered, pressing random buttons. A kind elderly man standing next to him noticed his confusion. "Biglietto. You need help?" the man asked. In broken English. Yes, please. James nodded eagerly. The man smiled and pointed at the screen. 1 ticket. Biglietto Simplis. You go anywhere in Rome for 100 minutes. James followed his instructions and finally retrieved his ticket. Grazie, he said, grateful for the stranger's kindness. With Theo's guidance, he navigated the metro system, boarding a train toward the Colosseum. As he emerged from the underground station, the sight before him took his breath away. The ancient amphitheater stood proudly, its massive stone arches a testament to Rome's grandeur. Over 50,000 spectators once gathered here to watch gladiator battles. Theo explained. Can you imagine the roar of the crowd? The excitement? The fear? James could almost hear the echoes of history. As he walked inside, he marveled at the sheer scale of the structure. The worn stone seats, the underground tunnels where gladiators once waited, the imposing walls. It all felt surreal. After soaking in the atmosphere, James ventured into the heart of the city. He wandered through the cobblestone streets, passing fountains, piazzas, and ancient ruins. He admired the beauty of the Trevi Fountain, tossing a coin into the water, as legend suggested, to ensure his return to Rome. You're getting the hang of exploring on foot, Theo observed. But try the bus next. It's how many Romans commute daily. James found a nearby bus stop. But when the bus arrived, he was puzzled. There was no clear entrance line. Instead, passengers seemed to board from multiple doors simultaneously. He hesitated for a moment but decided to follow the locals' lead. Inside, the bus was packed. James held onto a pole tightly as the vehicle jerked forward. He noticed a young mother struggling with her baby stroller, trying to find space. Instinctively, he helped her lift the stroller into position. She smiled at him gratefully. Grazie mille. Theo chuckled. See, a small act of kindness makes a difference. The bus dropped him near Vatican City. James stood before St. Peter's Basilica, overwhelmed by its grandeur. He explored the vast square, marveling at Michelangelo's genius in the Sistine Chapel. As the sun began to set, James found himself in a lively piazza where musicians played and artists painted portraits. He sat at an outdoor cafe, ordering his first authentic plate of pasta carbonara. The flavors melted in his mouth, rich with creamy egg, pancetta, and pecorino cheese. Food in Italy isn't just a meal, Theo said. It's an experience, a conversation, a tradition passed down for generations. As James sipped his espresso, he reflected on the day's experiences. Rome had been more than just history. It was a city full of life, lessons, and warmth. The kindness of strangers, the beauty of ancient landmarks, and the joy of good food made him feel connected to a city so different from his own. Theo's voice hummed softly. And that, James, is the magic of travel. Every place you visit adds a new story to your journey. James smiled, watching the city lights flicker. Chapter 4. A vibrant ride in Mumbai. James felt an overwhelming energy as the train pulled into Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Terminus in Mumbai. The station, a magnificent mix of Victorian Gothic and traditional Indian architecture, bustled with people moving in every direction. The scent of spices, the blaring honks of rickshaws, and the distant calls of chai vendors created a sensory overload unlike anything he had experienced before. Welcome to Mumbai, James. Theo said, his voice filled with enthusiasm. The city that never stops moving. James stepped off the train and took a deep breath. The air was thick with the aroma of street food, spiced samosas, sweet jalebis, and freshly brewed chai. He watched as locals expertly navigated the crowded platforms, jumping onto moving trains with ease. How do they do that? James asked in amazement. Mumbai's local trains are its lifeline, Theo explained. For millions of people, they are the fastest way to commute. It may look chaotic, but it's a system that runs with an unspoken rhythm. James decided to experience it firsthand. He purchased a ticket and followed the crowd toward a train bound for Churchgate. As the train pulled in, passengers quickly boarded, some even hanging on to the open doors. Summoning his courage, James hopped in just before the doors shut. Inside, the compartment was packed. Men stood shoulder to shoulder, chatting in Hindi and Marathi. James held onto a railing as the train swayed, marveling at how effortlessly the locals balanced themselves. An elderly man beside him smiled. First time on a Mumbai local? James nodded. It's quite the experience. The man chuckled. You'll get used to it. Just keep your balance and hold on tight. James spent the day exploring Mumbai's vibrant streets. He strolled along Marine Drive, the sun setting over the Arabian Sea, casting golden hues over the water. He ventured into the bustling markets of Kolaba, where vendors sold everything from colorful bangles to fragrant spices. Feeling adventurous, he stopped by a roadside stall and ordered vada pav, a spicy potato fritter sandwiched in bread. The vendor handed it to him with a grin. Try with chutney, sir. Extra spicy. James took a cautious bite and his eyes widened. The burst of flavors, spicy, tangy, and savory, was unlike anything he had ever tasted. He gulped down a sip of cool coconut water from a nearby vendor, feeling the burn subside. Later, he visited a small school in a quiet neighborhood. There, he met Arjun, a young student who approached him curiously. Are you a traveler? James smiled. Yes, I am. I'm exploring different places around the world. Arjun's eyes sparkled. I want to travel too, but my father says first I must study hard. James crouched to meet his gaze. That's a wise father you have. Learning about the world starts with learning in school. But one day, if you work hard, you'll see all the places you dream of. Arjun grinned. I will. And I'll take the train everywhere just like you. As James returned to Theo, he reflected on his day. Mumbai had been overwhelming at first, but he had seen its heart, the resilience of its people, the warmth of strangers, and the beauty in its chaos. Theo, he said as the train prepared to depart, Mumbai is like no other city. It's alive in every way possible. Theo chuckled. And now, you are part of its story. Ready for the next adventure? James nodded. He had learned that every city had its own rhythm, its own way of life. Chapter 5. The bullet train in Tokyo. James stepped off Theo onto the platform of Tokyo Station and was immediately struck by the seamless blend of tradition and technology surrounding him. Towering skyscrapers glowed with neon signs, yet nearby, he could see the curved rooftops of ancient temples nestled between the modern buildings. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh sushi and the quiet hum of an orderly yet bustling city. "Welcome to Tokyo, James," Theo said. "This is a city that moves at lightning speed, yet respects its past with deep reverence. And speaking of speed, I think it's time you experience something extraordinary. The Shinkansen, Japan's famous bullet train." James's eyes widened. He had read about the Shinkansen, the world's fastest and most efficient high-speed train. But now, he would get to experience it firsthand. Theo guided him to the sleek and futuristic-looking train. The white and blue exterior gleamed under the bright station lights. As the train arrived, it did so with almost no sound. Smooth, quiet, and precisely on time. The door slid open, revealing an immaculate interior with wide, comfortable seats and large windows that promised a spectacular view of Japan's landscapes. James took his seat and felt a slight vibration as the train began to move. Within moments, the cityscape of Tokyo blurred past him as the train accelerated to speeds over 300 km/h. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever felt. Gliding effortlessly over the tracks, the motion was so smooth that he could barely feel it. An elderly gentleman sitting beside him smiled. "First time on the Shinkansen?" he asked in perfect English. James nodded enthusiastically. "Yes! It's amazing how fast and quiet it is. I've never been on a train like this." The man chuckled. "Japan takes pride in precision and efficiency. This train is never late, not even by a minute. It is designed to get people where they need to go without delay." As James gazed out the window, he saw the towering skyline of Tokyo transition into the rolling hills of the countryside. Within minutes, Mount Fuji came into view, its snow-capped peak standing majestically against the bright blue sky. He quickly took out his travel journal and sketched the breathtaking sight, determined to capture the moment. The elderly man continued, "But Japan is not just about technology. It is about discipline, harmony, and respect. If you truly want to understand this country, visit a temple, join a tea ceremony, or simply observe how people interact with one another." James listened intently. He had always admired Japanese culture, but realized there was so much more to it than he had assumed. As the train pulled into Kyoto, James decided to explore a quieter side of Japan. He visited a serene Buddhist temple, where he watched monks engage in silent meditation. The air was filled with the soft scent of incense, and he found himself feeling a sense of peace he hadn't experienced before. Later, he joined a traditional tea ceremony. A woman dressed in a beautiful kimono carefully prepared and served matcha tea, each movement slow and deliberate. "Every step has meaning," she explained. "The way we prepare tea reflects the way we should live, mindfully, with respect and gratitude." James sipped the tea, appreciating its earthy bitterness. He realized that in a place known for its speed, there was also deep patience and mindfulness. As he returned to Theo at the station, he reflected on the contrast between the bullet train's speed and the slow, deliberate traditions he had witnessed. "Theo, Japan is a country of balance. The Shinkansen represents efficiency, but the temples and tea ceremonies remind me of the importance of stillness." Theo chuckled. "That is the essence of Japan." James. A place where the past and future exist side by side. A lesson in harmony. As the train prepared for its next journey, James looked back at the neon-lit streets, the towering temples, and the sleek bullet train he had just experienced. He knew that Japan had left a lasting impression on his heart. Where to next? He asked eagerly. Theo's voice rumbled with excitement. Rio de Janeiro, where music, dance, and passion come alive. James grinned, ready for the next adventure. Chapter 6. The Final Stop. New York City. James felt a mix of excitement and nostalgia as Theo pulled into Grand Central Terminal in New York City. This was the final stop of their incredible journey. The vast, arched ceilings of the terminal gleamed with golden lights, and the air buzzed with hurried footsteps and echoing conversations. James stepped onto the platform, inhaling the crisp city air, filled with the scent of pretzels, roasted nuts, and the unmistakable energy of the metropolis. New York, Theo said, his voice filled with pride. A city of dreams, ambition, and resilience. If there's one place that embodies the pursuit of success and freedom, it's here. James looked around, his eyes darting between business people in sharp suits, street performers captivating crowds, and tourists snapping pictures of the grand architecture. He felt an electric thrill. This was a city where anything seemed possible. As he walked out of the station, he was immediately engulfed by the towering skyscrapers, the flashing billboards of Times Square, and the symphony of honking taxis. He had traveled across many cultures, but New York felt like a blend of them all. His first stop was Central Park. Despite the towering concrete jungle surrounding it, the park was an oasis of greenery and tranquility. Joggers ran past him. Children laughed on playgrounds, and artists sketched on benches. He met an elderly man feeding pigeons, who smiled at him warmly. "First time in New York?" the man asked. James nodded. "It's overwhelming, but in the best way possible." The man chuckled. "That's New York for you. It moves fast, but it has a heart. If you look closely, you'll see people helping each other, sharing moments. This city is built on ambition, but also on kindness." James took that to heart. As he wandered the streets, he found himself admiring how people from all walks of life lived side by side. In Chinatown, he enjoyed dumplings while listening to conversations in Mandarin. In Harlem, he was mesmerized by jazz musicians playing their hearts out. In Brooklyn, he joined a small poetry reading in a cafe, where aspiring writers shared their dreams through words. As evening fell, he stood at the top of the Empire State Building, looking down at the sea of twinkling lights. He realized something profound. Every city he had visited had its own rhythm, its own lesson to teach. Paris had taught him to embrace culture. Rome had shown him the power of history. Mumbai had opened his eyes to resilience. Tokyo had revealed the beauty of balance, and Rio had ignited his passion for living fully. And now, New York was teaching him about the endless possibilities life had to offer. He returned to Theo, feeling both accomplished and wistful. "This journey changed me, Theo," he admitted. "I've learned so much about the world and myself." Theo chuckled. "That was the goal all along, James. Travel isn't just about places. It's about perspectives. It's about learning, growing, and embracing the beauty of diversity." James placed a hand on the train's side. "Thank you, Theo, for everything. You're always welcome, my friend. But remember, this is not the end of your journey. The world is vast, and there's always more to discover." As the final whistle blew and the doors closed, James watched Theo disappear into the horizon, knowing he would carry the lessons of this journey forever. Moral of the story: James's journey teaches us that travel is more than just moving from one place to another. It's about understanding, growing, and embracing the richness of human experiences. Every culture has something unique to offer, and by immersing ourselves in different traditions, we gain new perspectives. This story highlights the importance of cultural respect and understanding. Appreciating different customs and traditions helps bridge gaps between people and fosters empathy. Embracing new experiences, being open to new foods, languages, and lifestyles makes us more adaptable and enriches our worldview. Balance between fast and slow. Tokyo taught James that life is both about efficiency and mindfulness. In our daily lives, we must learn when to act fast and when to slow down and reflect. Resilience and passion. From Mumbai's crowded streets to Rio's rhythmic dance, James saw the importance of perseverance and living with joy. Dreams and possibilities. New York reminded him that ambition and determination can make the impossible possible. Ultimately, Theo, the talking train, serves as a guide not just for James, but for all of us. The world is vast and full of wonders, and the greatest lesson is to always stay curious, respectful, and eager to learn. Because in the end, the journey itself is the greatest adventure. The end.